day, Invigilators, and welcome to your examination training workshop. According to Memorandum TE03 of 2021, all TVET college management need to ensure that all invigilators are trained on the COVID-19 protocols for the upcoming external exams. So let's look through the COVID-19 rules and procedures for the exams. Students will be screened upon entering the campus at the security checkpoints. Should their temperature be above 38 degrees or they exhibit any symptoms of COVID-19, they'll be required to be sent to the quarantine area at your campus. This is our quarantine area. You'll find it across from room 2 at the side of the building inside the female student toilets. Once the student has been settled in the quarantine area, the exam officer will give the student an Annex GU to complete. This form needs to be completed and sent back to the exams officer so that DHET can register the student for the supplementary exam of the exam that they're going to miss. Students will have to go for a COVID test and bring the results back to campus once they're safe to return. These results, whether positive or negative, along with Annex GU, will be sent to DHET to register the student for the supplementary exams. Supplementary exams will be held next year. For NCV, the supplementary exams will be held in February and March, and for the native students, it will be held in June. If students miss an exam due to COVID reasons, they will not be required to pay any fees for a supplementary exam. If students are screened by the security and deemed safe, they will proceed to the building where they will complete this register as per COVID protocols. Once the student is done with the register, they will then enter the building and immediately sanitize their hands at the sanitation point by the entrance. Then they will proceed to their venues and wait for the invigilators to allow them in. Staff and students need to wear their masks at all times during the exam period. Invigilators, please enforce social distancing of 1.5 meters both inside and outside of all exam venues. And please ensure the students re-sanitize their hands upon entering. Arrival times. 2 invigilators will be allocated to each venue. Invigilators are to ensure that they are at their venues at 8 in the morning for the morning session or at 12 in the afternoon for the afternoon session. Invigilators are to unlock the venue and get it ready by opening windows, ensuring computers are logged in, tables and chairs are correctly placed, and the exam clock is displaying. Invigilators are required to wear their lanyards and have the exam timetables with them during the entire exam. Invigilators will sign the attendance registers in the exam files in the venue. And at 8:15 or 12:15 sharp, one of the invigilators will go collect the scripts at room 13, while the second invigilator remains in the venue to start checking and allowing students into the venue. Student arrival. According to Memorandum TE01 of 2020, students must arrive at least an hour and a half before the start of the exams. Students to be seated in the exam venue by 8:30 for the morning session or 12:30 for the afternoon. Should the students arrive after this, they'll be placed in a holding area until 9 for the morning session and 1 for the afternoon. Our holding area is at the quad by the cafeteria. The exam room will be closed 30 minutes before the start of the exam, and no students will be allowed into the venue during that time. If a student arrives at a security checkpoint at 9 or 1 for an exam that starts at 9 or 1, they will not be allowed in the exam venue. So let's summarize. For non-computer exam venues, for session 1, students need to be seated at 8:30 for an exam that's starting at 9. Any students arriving after 9 will not be allowed to write. For session 2, students will need to be seated in an exam venue at 12:30 for an exam that's starting at 1, and any students arriving after 1 will not be allowed to write. Now in regards to computer exam rules. For subjects Life Orientation Level 2 and 3 ICT, for Intro Computer Practice N4 and Computer Practice N4, for session 1, these students need to be seated in the exam venue by 8:15. The computers will already be logged in, so do not log the students out. For ALO, no students are allowed to leave before 11 o'clock. And for ICP and CPN4, no students are allowed to leave before 12 o'clock. For session 2, ALO students will have to report to a holding area before 10:45. For ICP and CPN4 students, they will have to report to their holding area before 11:45. Students arriving after these times will unfortunately not be allowed to write their exams. Please remind students to also save and print their work continuously through the exams. Important to remember. Invigilators, please ensure that you check that the student's permit number is the same as their ID numbers. If there's a line drawn through a subject, this indicates the student is unable to write that specific exam. A black line means the student has outstanding fees. Green line means that their ICET was not completed, and a pink line means that the student did not achieve the required ICAS. For all invigilators who are standing by the door while the students are entering the venue, please remind them to check the table number that they're supposed to be seated at and the row that they're supposed to be seated in. Please urge students to create a pack like this, where they take a plastic sleeve and they put all their stationery, calculators, permits, as well as their IDs into the plastic sleeve. This ensures that they won't leave anything behind for their required exams. If they did forget their IDs or their exam permits behind, they can obtain a one-day only temporary Annexure V at admin for 20 Rand. Another very important thing to note, when the students are entering the venues, invigilators, you need to check that all their masks are mark-free. All math sets, rulers, and calculators, as well as permits, are free of any crib notes or scratch marks. No calculator covers are allowed into the venues. No cell phones, as well as smartwatches, are allowed into the venues. And in addition, invigilators, please ensure that your phone is on silent and only use it when it is an emergency. In addition, no hoodies, beanies, and peacaps are allowed to be worn in the venue. Only head coverings can be worn due to religious or traditional reasons. Students are required to have proof from their religious traditional leaders as to why they're wearing it. All students wearing these head coverings will need to have a female invigilator accompany them to a private area so they can search through the head coverings for any crib notes. No food or drinks are allowed in the venue. No textbooks, notebooks, workbooks, or papers are allowed in the venue. And only for the subject intro communication N4 may students bring in 4 resource materials. Invigilators, please, please, please. Bags are not allowed in the venue. They are not allowed to be on the cupboards, in the doorways, or even under a lecturer's table. So please don't allow students to bring in bags. Please also remind students the college is not responsible for any items that might go missing during the exams. Another thing to remind the students, any pieces of scrap paper or loose papers that are found inside the ID books or any written information inside the ID books or permits might deem them as causing an irregularity. If you find any of these items, please notify the Chief Invigilator immediately, who will proceed with the irregularity procedures and guide you on the correct steps to follow. Please urge students not to mark their permits. If they accidentally draw a line through any exams that still need to be written, the repercussion could be that that student might miss that exam. Exam rules. Once the student enters the venue and sits at their assigned table, hand the student the seating plan and sign by their examination number. Please check that they are signing the correct seat number and that if they're in the hall, they are sitting at the correct row. Once they have done this, you will then allow them to sign the floor plan and ensure that they're signing it at the same seat number as the seating plan. So as you can see here, the student is signing by seat number 1 because that is their examination code. They've signed by the tick to say that they're present, and they're filled in seat number, no, this is number 2. So unfortunately, they're writing it at the wrong spot. So please correct them and make them sign in by seat number 1. Once you've done that, you will then hand the student an answer book. You, the invigilator, will sign the top center of the answer book. You will write the row and seat number on top of the answer book as well. The examination officer has to have marked the book with a unique stamp or symbol. There should be an exam center number stamped on the answer book. And if a student uses more than one answer book, please ensure that you mark the first book 1 of 1 and the second book 2 of 2. This is a real life example of what you will see. Students will not write their names or initials anywhere on the cover. The only place that they'll initial is inside the cover of the answer book. And for computer practice books, please ensure that the student's exam number as well as the PC number appears on the book as well as the printouts. So to summarize, as the student sits down, you will hand them the seating plan. For the hall, you'll maybe have row A and the student is sitting at seat number 1. You'll check that the exam number matches their permit number. They will sign in the first column by the tick. They will then fill in the floor plan A1's. Then you will write A1 on top of the student's answer book and sign. Once the student has finished the exam, you will hand back the seating plan and allow them to sign for a second time by the 100%. There has to be 2 signatures per student to show that they have been present for the exam and that they've handed in an answer book. So, once the students have been seated and the doors are closed, at 8:30 until 8:45 and 12:30 till 12:45, you will remind the students of all the rules and regulations that they need to follow during the exam. Please remind them to raise their hands and to indicate if they have a question or if the hour has passed that they are actually done. They will not be allowed to use the ablution facilities within the first hour of the exam. And once the first hour has commenced and the student does need to use the ablutions, please note that the ablution facilities in the hall is behind the stage, and for any other venue, the students need to use the student toilets. Please remind the students not to cause any disturbance to any other students while leaving the venue. And please explain to the students that we cannot assist them with any questions in regards to clarity unless there is a problem with the question or there's missing information that might affect the student's answer. And if that is noted, the CI will then have to take the matter further. So then at about 8:45 or 12:45, the invigilators will show the students the sealed script packs. They will then open all the sealed script packs in front of the students, and 2 students will sign a declaration as witness that all the exam scripts were sealed upon entering the venue. Please note, no students may assist in opening with sealed packs, only invigilators may open them. Once you've opened up all the question papers, you will place all question papers face down on the student's table. After the question papers are distributed, you will check the correctness of the papers with all the students by going through the paper page by page. Please ensure that the students are on the same page and going and looking at the same question numbers as you. If the invigilators pick up any problems with the papers, please inform your CI to contact the Director of the National Exams Assessment Office so that they can give you more clarity on way forward. You as the invigilator may not effect any amendments without prior consent. Then at 8:50 or 12:50, students will be given 10 minutes to read through their exam. Please ensure that while they're reading through the exams, they are making no marks on any question papers or answer books. Just note, no removal of any answer books or question papers may be done while the exam is in progress. Students that are leaving before the end of the full session may not leave with a question paper. This means that if the paper is for 2 hours and the student finishes within 1, they cannot leave with that question paper. If a lecturer or student is looking for question paper, they may receive one from room 13 after the exam has finished. Again, students are not allowed to leave for the first hour, and they're also not allowed to leave the last 15 minutes of the exam. So after the exam begins, invigilators are to complete any admin, and they can only do so after the students have started their exam. All late students who are being sent from the holding area need to be assisted immediately and promptly. So what to do if there's an irregularity? If there's an irregularity detected, call the exam officer or the CI immediately. Evidence and the student's answer book will be confiscated. The front cover will be endorsed with the irregularity, book 1, and the time that you confiscated that book. A new book will be endorsed with the irregularity, book 2, and will be issued to the student where they can continue where you stopped them. This is an example of what an irregularity book will look like. Please note that RR has been indicated next to the student who's caused the irregularity. Please remind students that if they cheat or their cell phones chime or ring during the exams, the CI will declare it as an irregularity and manage the situation in accordance with DHET's policy. An irregularity committee will investigate, report, and give recommendations on the incident. A statement will be requested from the student, as well as the crib notes and the cell phone will be confiscated. If the student is found guilty, they might not be allowed to write any external exams for up to 3 years. So at the end of the exam and the first hour has commenced, and any student that is ready to leave may do so quietly. Please, before you allow the students to go, announce to all the students that they may leave the hall through the quad doors and not through the glass. Also announce to all students that once they leave the venue, they cannot congregate outside the venues or in the parking lot. Basically, no student may congregate at any point in the building and should leave the campus immediately. Please remind them to not make a noise while they're exiting the building and think of the other students writing. Also remind students to please return all textbooks to admin as soon as they are done with their exam, as this could affect them receiving textbooks for the next year. And remind students that any stationery left behind will be confiscated. So in conclusion, the invigilator's duty in a nutshell. You arrive at the venue at 8 or 12. You get the exam room ready. You get the scripts. You allow the students to sit at their assigned table number. You give them the floor plan and the seating plan and allow them to fill it in and sign. You hand out the answer books, sign the top center, and write the seat number as well. And please don't do this beforehand, because if you accidentally write a student's number incorrectly or you sign too many books, those books will not be able to be used for another exam. You will read the rules, open the exam packs, and get the nominated student to sign the declaration. You will hand out the question papers face down. You'll 15 minutes before the start of the exam, go through the paper with the students. You'll give the students 10 minutes to read through the paper. You'll start the exam clock and the exam. You'll settle and sort out all latecomers. You will do your admin, such as checking the seating plan and the floor plan match, and complete any documentation assigned by the exam office. You'll monitor the students, and then at the end of the session, you will receive back the exam scripts and question papers and allow the student to sign the seating plan for the second time. You will let students leave, especially if it's from the hall, through the quad doors, and if it's from any other venue, they'll leave through the door and leave the building immediately. You will place the scripts in number order so that it runs in the same order as the seating plan. Once done, you will turn off all the lights, close the windows, and log out the computers. You will take the scripts to the assigned venue and read the examination numbers on top of the scripts back to the exam officer. PS, any noisy students must be addressed and asked to leave the campus immediately. So if you have any other questions, please ask your exam officer. Thank you and good luck for your exams.